Lawyers of Reddit, what is the dumbest thing your client has done to ruin a case? Client added 9 years to a short sentence. He got like a year or two for being involved in a drag race that the other guy crashed and severely injured someone else. Then towards the end of his short prison term, he tried to escape. Got 9 more years for prison escape. He became friends with John Lennon's killer in NY prison, which was interesting. Client was being sued and didn't like the opposing counsel or the judge, so he left the court a bunch of voicemail so profane that he was subject to a criminal contempt of court hearing. Friend of mine used to be a latent print analyst. Going to get prints of a suspect arrested for breaking into a home to rob it. While she's getting the ink and paper set up, suspect shouts, "What do you need the prints for?" She looked right at me when I kicked in the door. With the utmost certainty in his voice, he yelled at the arresting officer that it's not domestic violence, I'm on public property. You could tell from his face he really thought he had the cop over a barrel on this one, but not my client, but the petitioner attorney's client. The man claimed workers' compensation and threw the kitchen sink at us, meaning he basically listed just over half of his body parts on the claim petition, stating that he injured each one. He was full of shit and my firm knew it. Anyways, we were going to trial, and the day before we ran one more social media search. This absolute fucking moron posted a video of him winning a breakdance competition that was only a few months after the alleged work incident. Never saw a quicker dismissal in my life. Paralegal.ol. Once had a convicted criminal explain to me how their murder charge should be overturned because the victim didn't die at the scene of the crime. The victim died at the hospital. Therefore, the defendant couldn't be charged with anything more than attempted murder. I had an instructor who was a prosecutor. He called a witness who had seen the whole thing and had an interest in seeing the defendant punished. Slam dunk case. She thought she was on TV. She overacted every word, completely embellished the retelling of the events. Didn't lie, but she was the center of her version of events. He said you could see the faces of the jury members sour minute on minute. He lost the case. Around 1990, there was a guy on trial for armed robbery. He pled not guilty. A witness on the stand identified the defendant. The defendant jumped to his feet and roared, "I should have blown your head off when I had the chance." Pause. Thinks. Adds. If I had been the one who robbed you. I was on a jury where the defendant showed up in court day one wearing the same exact outfit as the unknown suspect in the video of the crime. It took only a few seconds before the judge immediately called a stoppage. All lawyers went into the back with the judge and they came out like 7 minutes later as announced the defendant had taken the plea deal. Wild. Not in the US, but the judge asked if the defendant was remorseful. If you show regrets, you can have some leniency. No. The guy didn't understand the question, and when he doesn't, he just usually says no. My wife's lawyer bans all clients from using social media after he lost a big case. Wrongful death lawsuit where a man's wife was killed. Easy money. They were about to settle until the other side found his pictures online from a club a week after his wife died getting a lap dance wearing a shirt that said "I love MILFs." Apparently they didn't think he had much pain and suffering anymore. Client returns to court drunk after lunch and adjournment. Falls asleep, and his head drops right into the side of the witness box, whereupon he proceeds to snore loudly. Client was part of a group of active pedophiles. One of the others killed the boy, while several were involved with physically abusing him. Our guy's defense was that he was just a voyeur, so although he was there, he was not involved in the actual murder. He was on bail the whole time, including the trial, up to when he decided to change his story and say, instead, that he hadn't been there. His sister gave evidence that he'd come home that night covered in blood. He got a long time. It was a credit card fraud case in the early part of my career. He actually wore the stolen clothes to court, and a clerk at the defrauded store identified them in front of the jury. I felt like the guy in the commercial that asks wanna be somewhere else. Recently was in court, and apparently part of the requirements of this guy was that he not talk to his family. He called his mother on Mother's Day. The judge said your mother seems to care about your freedom as little as you do put the cuffs on him. I don't know the perimeters of this case. I was just a bystander in court. The lawyer, in sweats mind you, said, "Oh judge," I told him. I told her. Can't fix stupid. It was wild to watch. Client charged with DUI. Forced by police to give a urine sample on the side of a very busy interstate highway. Any sympathy the jury may have had for the defendant was lost, however, when he fell asleep during the playing of the video of the traffic stop. He had been out all night partying the night before trial. He was found guilty. Then he lied to the judge about what would be in his system during a drug test, and his sentence was doubled. Now I was a legal clerk for a couple years in college. Still baffles me how this one made it all the way to trial. Lady slipped, fell at a chain restaurant, hurt her back irreparably, wanted a huge payout. Said she slipped on butter that was on the floor. On cross-exam, she was asked what type of butter. Answer: the little pats of butter they put out in the buffet. Defense immediately recalled the store manager. The store had never used that type of butter. Case ended pretty quickly. Lol Dardend. Used to work at a workman's comp firm and hurting themselves again. Oftentimes doing stuff around the house. Falling off a ladder, using tools, going horseback riding, etc. Then they get hurt again, and the insurance company is off the hook. And many get their doctors to write notes saying they're fine, so they can work because they're bored at home with a huge injury, then are baffled that they don't get workman's comp anymore. Then they overexert themselves because of the injury that isn't better. Sigh. Not me, but a colleague. A wealthy client's son got picked up for drug dealing at a local music festival. The client bailed him out, and then had his whole fancy law firm defend his son. The son shambled into the courtroom stoned off his ass, and loudly attempted to buy drugs off the bailiff. There wasn't a lot the lawyers could do after that. I'm not a trial lawyer but a real estate one. I had clients spend $15 on new lounge furniture and 4 TVs with their closing money 48 hours before I was due to close for them.